Well, this active weather pattern is going to continue, I think, for the next couple of weeks, and that could mean a chilly spring in some areas. And I'm telling you, next week, this is something really to watch. This trough that's moving in, that could bring a real strong round of severe weather, I think, to the country, and another decent snowstorm for parts of the West. We're also dealing with snow right now. We've got winter storm watches up in parts of the Northeast. We've got a slew of winter weather advisories, a lot to talk about. Let's go and start first with the winter weather advisories. A ton of them from Michigan all the way back into the northern counties of Illinois, right along the border of Wisconsin. It does include most of Wisconsin, so Green Bay over to Madison, over to Rochester, Minnesota, the Twin Cities. Yes, we have winter weather advisories in effect. These areas could see anywhere between 3 and 6 inches. I think somebody gets even up to 7. Across Michigan, we're talking about places like Lansing, Grand Rapids, north of Kalamazoo, does include Flint. Over toward Detroit, I think we see maybe an inch or so, but the heaviest snow just to your north, out towards Flint. Ann Arbor, it's going to be tough to squeeze much snow out of this, but again, I think we could see a slushy inch or two in some areas, but the further south you head, those snow chances really drop off, especially once you drop south of the border into Ohio and Indiana. And look, those winter weather advisories continuing all the way to the west as we're seeing some snow back here right now. And ahead of the system, winter storm watches for the Northeast, because in this area, I think the snow could get really heavy in a few areas. In fact, these winter storm watches are saying 7 or more inches of snow. And we've also got winter storm warnings where the confidence is a little stronger across parts of northern Maine. Does include Caribou over towards Fort Kent. You know, I think these areas could see up to a foot of snow. The general idea is 6 to 9. But I think some places could overperform. We're going to talk about that and why that might be a possibility. Let's break it down in some finer detail here. High pressure across the east, keeping these areas dry for now. Now, as we head into Friday morning, clouds will be on the increase, and we'll also start to see that snow really impacting parts of Michigan, back through Wisconsin, even the Twin Cities by the rush hour. So let's move exactly with the rush hour. So by 5 a.m., we've got snow going from just north of Chicago, Madison, we've got snow going, and in the Twin Cities, that could be the heaviest snow falling right around the rush hour, at least by the rush hour. And then over toward Lansing, Detroit, yes, I think we will see some snow early in the morning, and then everything pushing east. Now, temperatures will warm up close to or above freezing around Detroit and places south as we move through the late morning to the evening hours, and then back towards Chicago. Again, I think it's so close. We could see kind of a rain-snow mix, and then eventually maybe ending as some snow. And that could be the case also for Detroit as some cooler air, I don't want to say cold, behind the system filters in. A lot of rain moving into the south as we get into Saturday morning now, and this is the time for the heavy snow across the Northeast. Now, even though we don't have winter storm watches out for Buffalo, I think this is an area to watch. So from Buffalo over to Rochester, over to Syracuse, I think areas north of these towns could see the heaviest snow, but I think this needs watched, especially as we get into tomorrow. So will those winter storm watches be extended further south? Will winter weather advisories be issued? I think it's possible, because I think the potential for some heavy snow is here with this system. Most of the snow, though, again, north of Glens Falls and up toward Burlington, Vermont, into the Green and White Mountains here, into New Hampshire and Vermont, and then Maine. Clearly, that's where the big snow is going to fall. With that rain, let's back things up, really pushing through D.C. We'll see heavy rain here from the Jersey Shore all the way down through the Carolina coast into Florida, and that pushes offshore as we move into Sunday. So we do start to see some drying conditions here as we wrap up the weekend. Across the west, if you're here, you're watching this next storm that's going to start to be felt as we move into Friday. The Northwest will start to see rain and snow, and then look, snow really starting to break out across parts of Montana, and it could be heavy at times here as low pressure deepens on this side of the mountains, pushing that wind right up against the upslope. So heavy snow possible here, and I'm telling you, next week, if you live anywhere here, the track of this low will mean the difference between almost a raging blizzard and rain. Okay, so I think we've got a long way to get there, but the models are consistent of bringing us a very strong winter storm toward the Minnesota area sometime Monday into Tuesday. Now, if you're in Minneapolis, St. Paul, you may start as snow, then over to rain. Behind it, some snow. Look what the difference of a couple of 100 miles could make, though, right? So I think there's a lot to iron out. One thing that I feel confident about, no matter what happens with that surface low, we're going to get that big trough that digs in here. And out ahead of that, we're going to see severe weather. First, I think it's here across the plain states, so Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, and then things push east into Arkansas, Missouri, maybe even as far north as Iowa, especially with this track. That could put severe weather potentially close to Chicago again, and then all across the deep south as this system pushes east. A long way to time this out, and we'll get there, and this will be refined. So if you've not subscribed, if you like this kind of content, I hope you will. A quick look at the GFS just for comparison. That was the European, by the way. Look at this. Our eastern snowstorm and this rain across the mid-Atlantic, very similar looking here on this particular run. And then look, here comes your low pressure with the next big storm. Look at all of these tightly packed isobars. Either way, wherever this thing goes, it's going to be a huge wind maker out ahead of the system with the severe weather and behind it with the potential blizzard conditions. I mean, if you get wind going this much with snow on the ground, I mean, you could see it. And look, the GFS is a little bit further to the east. That pushes that snow a little further to the east. If I had to guess, maybe 50 to 75 miles or so. But either way, it's still showing a strong storm next week. And if you think you like this kind of content, I hope you'll subscribe here to the channel. It just continues to grow thanks to you guys. I couldn't do it without you. So do me a favor, hit subscribe below, and you can keep these videos coming your way. And it helps the channel out too. So if you're enjoying it, I do appreciate you doing that. Here comes the snow though. Look at this. There's that band of snow that we're seeing tonight into tomorrow. It could be heavy again. I think a few areas here into Michigan need to be watched, especially where we get that tight temperature gradient. Think it could be heavy in a few spots, but a solid 3 to 6 inches here looks likely. There's going to be a sharp cutoff line to the south. Again, Detroit, I think we could see maybe an inch or two. The further north you go, especially on the north side of these areas, up into the suburbs, 3-4 inches, and then up into central Michigan, somebody could see 5, 6, 7, maybe even 8 inches. And I think that's the case here too, across extreme southern Wisconsin. The latest NAM model picking up on that. And then look how the snow really picks up once it moves to the east. You know, I don't want to forget about our friends here in Canada too. I mean, look at this. This could put 8, 9, 10 inches of snow down for Toronto over to Hamilton. Buffalo, listen, I think this is why this needs to be watched. No winter storm watches out just yet, but keep an eye to the forecast heading into tomorrow. There could be some changes. And listen, I think there's just a lot of uncertainty here. Now, where the confidence is, that's where you see the winter storm watches. That's the way these things work. People say, look, the everything shifted. Well, it might, but if I were putting a forecast out, I would not feel confident just yet to issue winter storm watches. I would definitely say keep an eye on things with numbers that are getting better than 6 inches here. It could be a decent snow for the mountains over into Vermont and New Hampshire, where these areas could see more than a foot of snow. And that's why I think, you know, I said that the National Weather Service had 6 to 9, I think was in the warning here. But look, some of the models putting out more than a foot. You see these numbers, 15 inches, 14, 15. I mean, I'm not saying we'll see that, but you get some compaction going on here. The models sometimes don't do so well handling those things. And this is the NAM model, by the way, which I'm telling you right now, I love the NAM in the mid-range. It is a little heavy on the precip sometimes. So I think that's why maybe it's closer to a foot. But either way, we're talking about some heavy snow. How about we issue a spring weather advisory instead of the winter weather advisory? Okay, enough of that. All right, guys, thanks for watching. See you next time.